All right, chapter 21 of Joshua, we're going to talk about the Levites. And if you remember, we've talked several times about their inheritance, which is not land. They don't get land for inheritance. But the challenge is, where do the Levites live if they don't have an inheritance of land? So there were cities that were designated for cities that they could live in. These cities were among the other inheritances, other lands of the other people, but this was a city dedicated for the Levites and their families to live, so that the Levites had a place for their families to be while they were doing all the work at the tabernacle. Verse 1, then it came near the head of the fathers of the Levites unto Eleazar the priest. So this is the fathers of the Levites, the tribal fathers come to Eleazar the priest, and unto Joshua the son of Nun, and unto the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. So this is Joshua is kind of the prophet, the leader. Eleazar the priest is kind of second underneath Joshua. And then we have the leaders of each of the tribes have come together. And verse 2, they spake unto them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses to give us cities to dwell in, with the suburbs thereof for our cattle. And the children of Israel gave unto the Levites out of their inheritance at the commandment of the Lord these cities and their suburbs. So now they go in to talk about which cities that they get and how that works out. So they did have animals. They did have some things to take sustenance and take care of. But again, the Levites were not to be spending their time, doing crops and raising cattle and out in the fields. Their time was spent taking care of the tabernacle and doing the ordinances and the sacrifices and things like that. So their families could take care of the cattle. The priests, the men, were not, basically. So this chapter lists out where they go, which cities of the different tribes were given, so that the Levites had these cities where they could dwell and they could have their possessions and things put together. So they didn't get necessarily a full inheritance of land like the rest of the Israelites did. They got cities given to them from the other tribes, but then they were to take care of the spiritual side of Israel, basically, is what it came down to. And so this is really interesting. Verse 40, verse 43. And the Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about, according to all that he sware unto their fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. For the Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. There fell not aught of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass. So just reminding that's kind of summarizing up, going, okay, look, all of the promises that God had given to Israel have all come to pass. He got them the land. They wiped out their enemies. They're all gone. They have this land flowing with milk and honey, a very abundant place for them to live and to grow and raise their families and to worship God and do things. So everything that God said would come to pass did. All the promises God made, he kept, especially to the point that the Israelites kept their promise with him as well. Those two-way promises, the covenants, but it's nice to know that God fulfilled his promises. He took care of the people and got them going, which is really, really great. It's really nice that he did that. So let's jump into chapter 22 to learn a little bit more again as they're getting settled, putting things together, and getting ready to change their way of living. They went from being nomadic, moving around a lot, relying on God for food, to now they have all this land. They can spend their days growing crops. They can spend their days taking care of their animals and doing things and not wandering as much. They don't have to live in an area, get set up, be there for a little while, a couple months to a few years, and then move to the next place. They've got permanent housing now, basically. So they're having to get things established for this new way of life that they're really, most of them were born and raised during that 40-year wandering. So this is new to them to not have to move, basically. So let's read more about how they get established.